This is Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast hosted by me, Jody Ketterba. Montana Farmers Union supports its members through education, legislation, and cooperation. This bi-weekly production will help you stay informed and connected to current agricultural issues, news, and events. Hi, I'm Jody Ketterba, the Education Associate for Montana Farmers Union. Grab some lunch and let's get right into our episode of Farmers Markets and CSAs. We'll visit with Tammy Howard of the Montana Farmers Market Network, Holly Stoltz of Sego Lily Skincare, and Lisa Schmit from Land of Grass Premium Natural Grass-Fed Beef and Lamb. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite starts to the summer is to visit the farmers market. I love to walk down the street or the row of vendors and smell the flowers and see the herbs and look at all the products that have been made by incredibly talented people. I love the fresh produce, the fresh meat, and most of all, I love to visit with the people who have produced it. Farmers markets and consumer-supported agriculture are direct markets for producers to sell to consumers. There are over 70 farmers markets located throughout Montana. Whether you're a producer thinking about marketing or a consumer looking for a source to purchase, you can find local farmers markets on the Find Foods and Farm map at abundantmontana.com. If you haven't been to a farmer's market recently, I really suggest you go. I've recently walked through the vendors at Helena, Great Falls, and Shoto. The variety of products and vendors is amazing. You can purchase a snack or drink to eat while you peruse the stands of food, fiber, and crafts available. I'm partial to the local produce and meat to take home and eat. However, I've found some great canned goods and even home products from local producers. I know some people are skeptical about the safety of products not purchased at a known retailer. However, there are laws and regulations in place to help ensure the safety of the products being produced and sold. It is legal to sell food and beverages out of your home in Montana. The licenses and regulations are dependent on the type of product you're producing. There's a set of laws called the Cottage Food Laws in Montana. You can find them at cottagefood-laws.com/montana-cottage-food-laws. They allow certain types of cottage foods, including baked goods, candy, jams, jellies, and dry mixes, to be sold with minimal licensing. However, you must obtain a food establishment license from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services and a home-based business permit from the local health department if you're producing potentially hazardous foods that require refrigeration or other controls to prevent foodborne illness. There are strict penalties for selling food without permits, including fines and imprisonment. If you're interested in selling at a farmer's market, there are many resources available to help you navigate the process. The Montana Farmers Market Network has developed a Getting Started with Farmers Market Vendor toolkit that can help you. Other valuable resources include your local extension office and the market manager of the farmers market you plan to sell at. Today, we're going to visit with Tammy Howard, Holly Stoltz, and Lisa Schmit to find out more about their experiences with farmers markets. Tammy, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Jody. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So thank you for taking time to visit with us. You are representing the Montana Farmers Market Network. So what is that?
Yeah, first I'm gonna start off and just mention that the Farmers Market Network is it's a project of the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And the network is a bunch of partners within the state that work with farmers markets, as well as the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And then of course the network of over 75 market managers throughout the state. But I'll back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the National Center for Appropriate Technology. NCAT for short, which it's a national not-for-profit that we're based in Butte, Montana. And NCAT was started in the 70s as a response to the energy crisis to help people with limited incomes, help them with energy conservation. And then we extended that work to working with farmers shortly after the farm crisis in the 80s. And that happened through our ATRA program. And ATRA stands for Appropriate Technology Transfer to Rural Areas. So since that's such a mouthful, we just say ATRA, which is basically a sustainable agriculture information service for farmers and ranchers. And ATRA provides a lot of information to farmers and ranchers and beginning farmers on business planning and sustainable and regenerative production, as well as pest management and some of the marketing information that we're going to talk about today. And so ATRA really does help us leverage this work that we're doing with farmers markets at the local level. And I do work my work with the Farmers Market Network originated in my work with market farmers throughout the country on their business planning and marketing. And then myself and my colleague, Mara Hen, have been working with this Farmers Market Network for like 6 to 7 years now. And Mara mainly works with market managers, and I work on that side with the farmers market vendors through, my business planning and marketing experience.
Nice. Well, that sounds like you have a lot of resources available, and it would be good for anybody to look up and see what kind of services are there. What are some of the benefits of having farmers markets or CSAs to a producer?
Yeah, so the Farmers Market Network has we just developed this really great toolkit, and it's online. It's called Getting Started with Farmers Markets, and it has a series of recorded lessons and case studies, as well as resources on topics such as like getting to know your market manager, pricing your product, and then leveraging farmers markets to expand your sales and into other marketing channels, including CSAs, and then social media marketing. So we also provide technical assistance to vendors on all of those topics, as well as any others that might come up in selling through a farmer's market. And so that toolkit can be found at the Montana Farmers Market webpage, which is farmersmarketmt.com. And it sounds like, Jody, you're going to be putting that information in the show notes. Is that correct? Okay,
And
great.
it'll go on the screen.
Yeah, and so that resource is mainly for producers and vendors that are selling at farmers markets. But we also have the farmersmarketmt.com has a ton of different resources, including case studies and videos and all sorts of manuals and resources for market managers. So that market managers that might be listening to this podcast might want to check it out for those resources as well. And then I will say regarding like community supported agriculture marketing strategies, I would say NCAT has a wide breadth of information on selling through CSAs and on developing the right enterprise and marketing channel assessments. And that is at attra.ncat.org. And there's just, you could do a Google search and you'll see all the different information that we have related to marketing through a community supported agriculture program.
When you look at farmers markets, what kinds of drawbacks do producers have participating in farmers markets?
Yeah, so I would say, there are a lot of important considerations in selling to a farmer's market. So some of the benefits would include like they're pretty low risk and low input for farmers. And producers and any kind of vendors that are kind of just getting started in selling a new product. Because you can basically just bring whatever product you have available and you kind of have that captive audience. The challenge, however, is that some markets throughout the state are, they're pretty saturated. And so unless you're, and those, that saturation, includes a lot of farmers that are actually pretty well versed and experienced at selling through a farmer's market, and they have a pretty committed customer base. So I always encourage folks that want to sell through farmers markets that it's just really important to find opportunities to set yourself apart. And we talk about that in the farmer's market toolkit. Um, and um, and the other consideration that's really important for folks and is just the extensive time and labor that goes into selling at farmers markets. There's like a half a day prep at least, and then you're spending, several hours at the farmer's market, and then there's the tear down and, putting stuff away at your own farm. So that can be really challenging for people that already are pretty busy, either if they have an off-farm job or if they are, if they're doing multiple different types of marketing channels. And then I would say that CSAs, you know, uh, so community supported agriculture, it basically it originated as a way for consumers to share the risk with the farmer. And so in the way that CSAs work, consumers provide an upfront payment, usually in the spring when the costs for farmers are really quite high. And then in return, they receive usually a weekly supply of whatever that product the farmer is producing. And this is usually in the form of mixed vegetables, but CSAs have become really quite sophisticated, and many provide a full spectrum of products, including different kinds of meats. I personally, I have a little micro flower farm, and I have a flower subscription service that would be technically a CSA, but it and so the drawbacks and benefits are a little different than farmers markets. And so one thing that I always advise folks that want to sell through a CSA is that, in order to obtain consumer satisfaction, it's just important that the producer has really strong production and production planning skills. So at any one point during the production season, that consumer is going to expect a box of, up to 7 to 10 different products. And so that succession planning, making sure you're really on top of that, and production planning skills are a must if you want to sell through that product. Yeah, and so and another consideration is that for both farmers markets and CSAs, they're direct to consumer marketing channels, right? So it's just really important that the producer enjoy working directly with the consumer or directly with the public. And so, I think a lot of producers do sell through both of these marketing channels because they're complementary. Many producers will have, as we were talking earlier, Jody, that a lot of producers will have their CSA customer pickup at their weekly farmers markets. And then a lot of producers actually start at a farmers market and then gain a customer base. And then they start selling through this, CSAs or subscription service.
As a consumer, why would we have a benefit of shopping at a farmer's market?
Yeah, I mean, I think consumers generally, they they have the benefit of knowing and understanding where their food is coming from, and understanding and getting to know and be a committed customer of a farmer or a producer. So um yeah, I think that a lot of consumers have, I guess, especially since the pandemic, have become even more excited to learn how, where their food is coming from. And so the farmers markets in Montana have just really, the sales, they were starting to see them drop before the pandemic, but now after like during and after the pandemic, a lot of consumers were just really interested in going to farmers markets and buying their product locally. And yeah, so I would say that's the biggest benefit.
Nice. And if I'm a consumer that has the availability of joining a CSA, what would be my benefit to doing that?
Well, yeah, as I had mentioned earlier, it's a benefit to the producer that the consumer is investing, it's in a sense, it's investing in the farm and a farmer. Um, so it's an even more, I guess, uh, it's even a stronger relationship with the farmer or the producer. And then so a lot of consumers that enjoy CSAs really enjoy just getting like a diverse product mix every week, and then learning how to what those products are, and learning how to cook with those products. And so I think that's something that sets a CSA apart from a farmer's market. And on the converse side of that, some consumers are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting so many of these products. I don't know what they are. I don't have time to cook them." But for the most part, I think that's definitely a benefit in why consumers rejoin CSAs on an annual basis. You had a question about like what consumers need to know about, CSAs and farmers markets. And I think yeah, there is that desire to understand where their food comes from. And when I'm talking with farmers, I'm always like, there is this desire on the part of the consumer, and this is like um a potential to like tell your story and to set yourself apart from other producers at either a farmer's market or CSAs, because there's like a lot of competition on both of those marketing channels. But I think for consumers, I think like what you were saying, Jody, they just don't have an understanding of how much goes into that beautiful farmers market stand that you see at your, local farmers market. And it's a lot of work to get those not just to like harvest and wash and get those products to that farmer's market stand, but it's also just all the stuff that goes into the product before that, like the planting and the weeding, and our frost that we just had 2 weeks ago, or a week ago. And so there is a lot that goes into that. So I think what sometimes consumers just look at the price, and then they're like, oh my gosh, that's pretty expensive. But a lot of farmers are just trying to trying to pay themselves and their employees a living wage. So that's something that I think that's important for consumers to really consider when they're doing that. And a lot of times those products are just going to last so much longer. If the farmers are doing really good post-harvest production practices, they're going to last much longer than anything you'll get at a grocery store.
Well, and you had mentioned that the planning, the preparation, the moving up to selling at the farmers market, and then people, especially CSA boxes, getting those products and not knowing what to do with them. And we've seen that during the pandemic, people have started cooking more at home. We had to. And that
Mhm.
that exploration of how to use things and expanding our horizons. And so it's kind of fun to see that variety that maybe you wouldn't pick up in another situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different types of things that producers are experimenting with, and I mean, I sold through a CSA for many years in my varied farming experience, and yeah, I always like to put that one little pop of something interesting and different in our product mix, and I think a lot of farmers like to do that too, just to get people thinking about and trying a different recipe. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Missoula last week and was able to visit some farm stands. And of course, the production of what's happening in Missoula right now versus what's happening in Great Falls right now
Mm.
is different. And so it was kind of fun to
Yeah.
see, you know, oh, we're only 3 hours away, but look at the seasonal difference from one side of the mountains to the other. And
I know it's crazy. I'm based in Belgrade, Montana, so we have, pretty cool climate compared to the Garden City.
yes, yes. What would you tell other producers who are thinking of starting as a vendor or starting as a CSA? Um, you talked about the resources that are available, but as a producer to other producers, um, what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I just reiterate that biggest consideration, especially with farmers markets, is the time that goes into producing for them, even though you're getting like 100% of the return of the consumer dollar. I think people are super excited, or farmers are super excited about that component, but they don't realize how much time goes into a farmer's market. But again, it is kind of a low risk consideration for for producers that are really wanting to either test a product or find a good uh find a good marketing, low risk marketing channel to get started with, and then find that niche that's going to set you apart. I always encourage producers that are considering selling at the farmers market, one, to get to know their market manager. Ask that market manager, this is what I'm thinking about producing, what are some of the gaps with related to that product at this farmer's market. Um, and then like with CSAs, again, just like making sure you have strong production skills and getting those production skills in place before actually entering into that market channel is one of the more important considerations. And then also just being able to have both of those marketing channels require like a high diversity of products over the course of the season. And like I said, that a lot of those considerations are mentioned in the Getting Started with Farmers Market Toolkit on the Farmers Market Network webpage.
Yeah. So as producers get prepared to sell at a farmer's market. We did an episode a couple of weeks ago about agritourism,
That's
and we mentioned the Abundant Montana website and their local food guide. And it
Absolutely.
does have a guide to all the farmers markets in the state. So for both consumers and producers, that's a good location to go if they're looking for, how do I go find the unique product that's in my area? So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I would say that when I talked about the Farmers Market Network being a partnership among NCAT and many other different organizations throughout the state. The Alternative Energy
Arrow.
Resources Organization, Arrow, and Abundant Montana are definitely one of those partners. And we do have the Farm to Food, their web-based version of the Farm to Food Guide, on our website. So there's it's a direct translation from the Abundant Montana list. But yeah, definitely. And that's great. Like, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I did have that in my notes, is that consumers can find farmers markets and CSAs and farm stands at the Abundant Montana webpage.
Yeah, there's even a list of like local restaurants that use
Yeah,
local produce, local meat. So, kind
exactly.
of a fun resource to have. Yeah.
It is. It is definitely the preeminent local food guide throughout the state. I refer all people, and I also refer farmers that are just interested in, if you're, like you had said, Jody, if you're interested in finding an area farmers market to sell at, or if you want to check out the competition with CSAs, or if you're thinking about expanding into one of those intermediate marketing channels, like restaurants or grocery stores, you can find what those marketing outlets are through the Farm and Food online map.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to visit with us today.
Of course.
Is there any last thoughts or final words that you would like to leave with our listeners?
I'm a part of an effort with Abundant Montana and Arrow called 33 by 33, and we're trying to get 33% of the products produced in Montana consumed by Montanans. And so, yeah, farmers markets, CSAs, those grocery stores that make local food purchasing a priority, that just helps circulate dollars in our local economy and support Montana's #1 industry, which is agriculture. So I just encourage folks to keep supporting those producers through trying to make local food purchasing a priority.
Why are you a member of Farmers Union?
We firmly believe in all of the policies that Farmers Union fights for. So, you know, we were members a long time ago, and because Trent's family has been huge farmers union family for a long time. And we just kind of got away from it because kids were growing up and we were busy. And so when we became empty nesters, we decided that we needed to get more involved. And so that's why we decided to become farmers union members again and be more
Yes.
active. So Trent is a board member and I'm just along for the ride. So
You had said that this is your first year selling in farmers markets. So tell me a little bit about the products that you create and sell at farmers markets.
okay. So really quick story. So I am, you know, middle age and always concerned about, you know, face wrinkles and everything like that. And so I'd been on this synthetic cream for over 10 years and it was expensive and thinking that it had to be working. And then I heard about tallow. And so I decided, well, I want to try that because it's natural and I know what I'm putting on my face and into my body has a bunch of chemicals in it. And so last summer I decided to try tallow skincare and took a before picture because I was going to prove it wrong and that you couldn't just take something natural and actually make it work. And so 6 months later, Trent was like, gosh, I really think that skin cream is working. And so I took an after picture and I was like, oh my gosh, it was like night and day. It was horrific, like what I had changed from in just 6 months. But the one downfall was that it made me smell like meat. And so I was like, okay, well, I can't do that because I'm not going to go off of this stuff, but I have to create something that's going to be better. And so I have spent my winter months in my basement laboratory, concocting and doing different recipes and versions of my own tallow skincare. And so what I have now is it's called Sego Lily, and it's tallow skincare, and I source from a regenerative and organic ranch in Big Timber because we don't really butcher a lot of our animals, and it does take quite a bit to create the products. And so I use all plant-based fragrances and I use all organic oils in my tallow. And knock on wood, since I've started using my own tallow, my husband does not smell meat. And so I had no really intentions of selling it. I was just going to make it for myself. But then I took another after picture with my own product of being on it for 2 months, and there was yet another change. And so I was like, okay, there's something to be said about really, really healthy tallow versus, you know, tallow that, you know, either like the ranch used hormones or antibiotics or grain fed. And so I thought, well, I can't keep this to myself. So I'm going to start producing it. And so that's the story of what products I sell at farmers markets. And at first I was just going to be online, didn't want to do any of this kind of stuff. That's not what I set out to do. But I also understand that when you start a new business, you have to get your name out there. You can't just put a website out there and wait for them to come. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll just start small and do farmers markets. And so long story short, that's how I started into my little.
That's a great story. So tell me, for people who don't know, what is tallow?
So tallow is actually the kidney fat off of an animal, and as unappeasing as that sounds, you know, Native Americans have been used tallow for so many different things. It's really good for like sunburns, just burns in general, like skin conditions, aging, acne. I mean, you just go down the gamut. It's so good for your skin. And so the kidney suet is what it's called, and that is the most nutrient fat on the animal. And so that's what you want to use for skincare. And what was I gonna say? There was something else I was gonna add to that, but, yeah, so that's all I use is the kidney fat off of an animal. So, yeah, and I render it myself several times, and I do all of my own processing and bottling. So, yeah, it's all done in my basement.
That is an awesome story. I really like that. So, as you've participated in farmers markets, what are some of the good experiences that you've had?
So actually, I think farmers markets, I think in general, honestly, are gaining more steam and momentum. And so I was a little leery at first, but I have done the Livingston Farmers Market and I've done the Red Lodge Market. And I think just being able to have that connection with consumers and people who like want to buy local and are very interested in supporting local, I think it's been really an eye-opening experience about how awesome farmers markets are, and how I do firmly believe that consumers are going to start going back to that more and more, and they're actually seeking out these types of opportunities to shop and know the people that they're buying from.
So, have you had bad experiences?
With farmers markets, I honestly cannot say that I have. Um, the Red Lodge Farmers Market is pretty small, but I actually think that is beneficial. And I think, if I was to advise anybody to do a farmers market, I would say don't be discouraged by the small ones, because honestly, I think the first time I was in Red Lodge, there was 9 vendors was all. And we had a amazing sales day. And so I think it's not really the quantity of vendors. I think that it's, I think small towns can really thrive with doing their own little small markets. And yeah, I think it's great, but I don't think I've had a bad experience.
That's awesome to hear. So, because you're providing skincare, is there any kind of licensing or certification that you had to have for your product or for your materials?
Nope, because it is not consumable. I don't have to have like a sanitarian or anything like that come out. Like if it was something that you ate, then absolutely, but skincare, no. And because I don't use any chemicals at all. I mean, there's nothing that I need to have like people check for, like, if it's going to cause burns or, anything like that. So it's all natural.
Well, you have the opportunity to talk to potential consumers. What would you tell consumers about shopping at farmers markets?
Well, I think the number one thing that I would tell people is I think it's really important to know who's producing your food and who's producing the items that you're, looking for, since I'm not food. But there is a lot of food available, produce and meat and honey at farmers markets. And so, I mean, I think that's just what, I think what I tell people at my booth is I think it's really important to know who you're buying from. And I think that that is a lost art. And I don't think we've been very disconnected from our food sources. And I think farmers markets really bring that back and give us a way to really, learn more about where our food comes from, the people that are producing it, and just the health benefits of buying like that. And so I actually am a really big advocate for farmers markets, and the fact that we do need to we need to take away a bunch more of the middlemen and really get to know who's producing our food.
Do you have any last thoughts that you would like to leave us with, or words of advice for producers and or consumers?
Well, actually, I would just say, I don't, even if you think that your product is not like, oh, that won't go well at a farmer's market. Because honestly, I was like, well, I don't know if people would really be interested in my products. I really think that people should try it. And and try different farmers markets. Don't just stay with one and do that. So I do the Livingston Farmers Market, which is a lot bigger. I mean, there's like 100 vendors there. And so you're competing more, but you also have more audience, right? But the one thing I will say is you don't understand your reach until you go to a farmer's market. And I say that from experience because actually just this week I had a gal call who has a Medi spa in New Mexico and would like to carry my products in her spa. And so a farmers markets around Montana and the nation in general, you don't understand your reach until you go to one because you just never know who you're going to meet and where they're from and their story. And so I think it's a really good way to expand your market. Even if you went into a farmer's market thinking that you only wanted to sell local, or that was your consumer. I think just, opening up your mind and realizing that attending a farmer's market can open up a lot of other possibilities and opportunities. I don't think people realize the impact that farmers markets have. So I can tell you the Livingston Farmers Market, just because the nonprofit that I work for actually runs the farmers market in Livingston. And that market alone, with 16 markets for the summer, creates over $300,000 in revenue generated to local producers. And that's just one market. And so, I mean, it would be interesting to see a statistic out for how much money is generated in our state just through farmers markets. So I think
That
that's
would
really
be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down. So there is a statistic out there that the average American is at least 3 generations removed from their farm.
Yep.
And they have no idea how their food is produced.
Yep. And that's where I think farmers markets can really fill that gap and start bringing, and candid conversation or whatever, but I do think our younger generations are really going to start bringing that back, because I think that's going to become very important to them. And I mean, not to say that our generation isn't either, because a lot of the people I sell to you see like a good mixture at farmers markets. All right. There's the young and the old, because your music and entertainment is bringing in your younger, but they're also very much in want to learn about your products. And like I said, I mean, like for me personally, I mean, tallow is not age specific. Anybody can use tallow for anything. And so, it is interesting to talk to the generations. So, I mean, I have a 80-year-old woman using my tallow, and I have, teenagers who are using it for acne. So, I mean, it's just a really broad spectrum, but I do think that farmers markets are becoming more popular, and I think it's our younger generations that are going to keep that momentum going. So I have faith that, our food system will become closer to us, and not that 3 generations apart. But yeah, so we got our work ahead of us though, for sure.
Well, and I think for a really long time, people who are in agriculture are busy a lot doing the things that they do to produce our food. And so they are quiet about what they do and how they do it. And so organizations like Montana Farmers Union and 4-H and FFA and farmers markets and all of those things are really important to get the word out of where it came from,
Yep.
who produced it, how long it took.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you so much for your time. Really was fun to visit with you. And I have seen you a couple of times now and just am amazed with all the things that you're doing.
Yes, it's just like I didn't know you before, and now it's just like we're seeing each other everywhere.
Exactly. So thank you for your time.
Yeah. And if there's anything else you need or have a question.
Can you tell me who you are and how you are involved with Farmers Union and farmers markets?
Sure. I'm Lisa Schmit. I own a land of grass ranch. I direct market beef and lamb, both at the farmers market and various other outlets and online. The Montana Farmers Union, I'm a member of the Montana Farmers Union, and it's really a supportive organization.
Unfortunately, there were technical difficulties with the recording, and much of the great conversation was not captured with Lisa. It was an amazing interview, and I want to share with you some of the information we visited about. Lisa stated that she provides processed cuts of beef and lamb at the farmers markets, including steaks, chops, roasts, and burger. One of the challenges is storing and transporting the processed packaged frozen meat and maintaining the healthy temperatures and conditions. However, she stated that making contact with consumers through farmers markets and allowing them to sample the products she has available is very important to the sales that she gets for her beef quarters and whole lamb sold on her website, and that it outweighs the struggles. Her consumers have communicated to her that the consistency of meat products received from her ranch keep them coming back. Unlike buying from a grocery store, the quality, texture, and flavor of the meat from a land of grass is very consistent and predictable. Lisa credits that to stable production practices, including the health of soils and forages, as well as the genetics and practices used to raise the animals. Lisa felt that this is a common trend in buying meat from the same producer over and over. She's used different processors to butcher her meat, including the Montana Premium Processing Cooperative in Havre. One of her concerns of Montana Premium Processing Cooperative was the packaging they used for the meat. She was unsure of how well it would hold up to the potential damage from transporting and storing meat for the farmers markets, as it's different than the packaging she'd worked with from others. She was pleasantly surprised at the durability after having some product processed, and she will be using the facility more in the future. Lisa stated the disadvantage to selling at farmers markets is that it's time consuming. It is demanding to pack up product, set up the stall, sell product all day, and clean up. However, she feels the benefits outweigh the disadvantages.
Is there any last pieces of advice that you would like to give to our listeners?
Oh, if I were really smart, I would say try it. And first find out what the rules are for the farmers market. Contact the manager. The manager in Great Falls is great. I hear that Kalispell and Missoula and those managers are well organized, and there are some rules that you gotta meet, but find out why, because some of them seem silly, but there are good reasons for them, and give it a shot.
If you are a Montana agricultural producer, I challenge you to look at the Montana Farmers Market Network, Getting Started at Farmers Market Vendors Toolkit. Do you have a product that you could sell at a farmer's market direct to your consumers? Maybe you are better suited to a subscription service, and a consumer-supported agriculture venture is more your style. If you live, work, or shop in Montana, check out a local farmer's market. You can find one near you by visiting the Find Foods and Farms map at abundantmontana.com. You never know what great flowers, produce, meat, beauty products, household goods, and crafts are waiting for you. Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast is a resource for agricultural producers, support industry, and consumers. Join Montana Farmers Union today and make your voice heard, advocating for family farmers, ranchers, and rural communities. Visit montanafarmersunion.com or MFUMT on Instagram, or Montana Farmers Union on Facebook to see events and opportunities.